Hi everyone, it's Ash from FPLHINTS here with my first UCL draft for Matchday 1 for the 25-26 season. As always, if you're able to like, share and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. New for the 25-26 season, I've got a WhatsApp broadcast channel. Feel free to join on the link below. And also, if you want to buy me a coffee, a link of that is in the description below as well. Now, you're probably wondering, at the time of recording, the fixtures haven't gone live, and how on earth and why am I actually going to be doing this draft? Well, it's something that I do with FPL as well. Before the fixtures go live, I like to have a reference point in terms of the players that I want to buy, even before the fixtures go out, so that at least before I get into my tinkering, there is a framework to work with. And what I'll be using for my parameters will be the teams that are favoured to win the 25-26 Champions League title, as well as those who performed reasonably in the previous season. So clearly, the likes of PSG, Liverpool, Barcelona, and Real Madrid will be among the favourites for this season, along with the likes of Arsenal, Man City, and Bayern Munich. And let's not forget Chelsea, the recent Club World Cup champions. So I'll factor those players in as I can. And yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into creating this draft. And I'll try and give justification for each of my picks as I go along. So the first player that catches my eye is Girassi. I think £8 million seems like a bit of a steal for me and did reasonably well in the Champions League last season. In fact, over the course of the 24-25 season, scored 34 goals, got 6 assists in 45 games for all club competitions. So I think £8 million seems like an absolute bargain. I think that is a no-nonsense pick right there, if ever there was one in UCL Fantasy. So the other player that I'm going to get, and interestingly enough, he's now been reclassified as a forward. It's Dembele. So £10 million in UCL Fantasy. He's already owned by 27% of UCL Fantasy managers. And of course, Dembele was instrumental for PSG as they won their first ever Champions League title. Played 49 club games last season, and in those 49 club games, he registered 46 attacking returns. So I think he will no doubt play a key role for PSG this season as they look to defend their title. So moving on to my next pick, and I've got to really balance the books here as well. So I can't go for a heavy hitter for my next forward. And there are plenty of options that are available. So obviously you've got likes of Harry Kane, Lewandowski, Martinez, Griezmann, Mbappe. The options are, of course, there. But then I ultimately, from my side, I want to really have a balanced first draft. So I've got to just be sensible with the spend I've got. So I think one double-digit price tag forward should be sufficient for me. And the other forward to go alongside Girassi and Dembele, for me, would be Vlahovic. So there he is, Vlahovic. So I'm going to add him in, £7.5 million. Now with him, he's not the most prolific of strikers, not going to get you a goal every 2 games, unlike many of Europe's best. But with him, 22 attacking returns in 44 club games last season. You'd expect him to be a regular starter. It's a bit of a differential there at 2%. Now, it could be that I default to a premium forward front line come UCL Fantasy Matchday 1 when we know what the fixtures are. But for now, I want to just have a nice spread of different options up top and keep it as balanced as possible. So moving on to the midfield now, going to pick a player from the Premier League and one who actually has got off to a really great start in FPL, and he's at Man City. So I'm just going to select a Man City player here. So just get that confirmed for you now. So just going to see his ownership as well, see how highly owned. He's probably owned by pretty much, oh, there we go, 18%. So it's Reinders of Manchester City. Going to add him in. Thought it'd be a lot less owned. And interestingly enough, his FPL price is £5.5 million, and in UCL Fantasy, he's £6.5 million. I think he offers exceptional value in terms of the attacking prowess, in terms of his defensive capabilities as well. So I think, like, barring City having super difficult fixtures, I think he makes perfect sense. And one thing that really went under the radar for many FPL managers was his actual attacking prowess, that many thought he's just like defensive in terms of his attributes, but when he was playing for AC Milan, he registered 20 attacking returns in 55 club competitions. So I think at 6.5 million, when he's doing that, and he's got that DEFCON capability, or in the case of UCL Fantasy ball recoveries, I think Reinders makes perfect sense. So again, I'm trying to keep picking players from different clubs as and when possible, so that I've got a good mix here. Might have a bit of a double up, but let's see what we can do. I'm sorted by most owned, actually. Just remove Man City as an actual filter as well. So just clear that, just to see who else is available. So got Lamine Yamal, so no doubt £10 million, higher price tag this time around. Interestingly, Rafinha, who basically scored double the number of points, £9.5 million. And the player that catches my eye is actually Elise, £8 million. I think he offers exceptional value at his price point as well. Moved to Bayern Munich last season, and in his time at Bayern Munich, registered an impressive 35 attacking returns in 50 club games. So yeah, Elise offers bang for buck there. So in he comes. And moving on to my next pick, I'm going to just see if he's actually a popular pick. He should be, and it's someone I had in my UCL Fantasy team for much of last season. So just having a quick look, there he is. So it's Lookman, another former Premier League player, only 4% owned in UCL Fantasy at this moment in time. So Lookman's had a very interesting career, that in the Premier League, you kind of felt that he wasn't being used to the best of his abilities, and then he went to Serie A, went to Atalanta, and literally is scoring goals for fun. 20 goals last season, 17 before that, 15 before that. I'm surprised he's only like 4% owned in UCL Fantasy right now. Again, subject to fixtures, that might change, but I think Lookman is a no-nonsense pick. Again, bang for buck players. Same with Girassi, Reinders, Elise, Lookman, and Vlahovic as well. So on to my next midfielder that catches my eye. Let's make it work with Rafinha. I think Rafinha is hard to ignore. Definitely, if you had a choice between Rafinha and Yamal, where Rafinha has scored double the number of points and he's like 500,000 less, I think he makes sense. With Rafinha, 56 attacking returns across all club competitions in 57 games. So that is really a no-nonsense pick there. Now that I've got a Barcelona player in my team, I've got to complement that with a Real Madrid player. And annoyingly, there aren't that many standout Real Madrid attackers who offer value that I could get. That, of course, you got the likes of Valverde at 6.5 million, but then you question his attacking prowess. So I was going to pick Jude Bellingham, but I do believe he's injured. There is another Bellingham that catches my eye if I can get to Dortmund, and it's a Joe Bellingham. So no doubt he should be a regular starter as well. £6 million. So of course it's going to be a big jump from going from the Championship and then going to Champions League football in the space of a few months. But I think he is really brilliantly priced at £6 million. You've got to get him in. So that's the midfield and the forward line complete. I think I've probably underspent to some extent, but let's just see what I can collate with this draft going forwards. So onto the defense. Gonna just sort it by percentage to see if any of the players catch my eye there. So let's get rid of the filter for Dortmund as well. So clear that. One name that comes to mind will be Trent Alexander-Arnold, because he's moved to Real Madrid. He's got the attacking prowess. Just seeing what his ownership is in UCL Fantasy at the moment. there he is, only 9% owned. Don't even need to give the stats for him, that time and time again he offers that attacking threat in terms of the set piece potential and just marauding up the pitch as well. £6 million. He's worth every penny. And talking of attacking potential, and I did say that I didn't want to really double up on teams with this initial draft, but if there was a first or second pick name in your UCL fantasy draft, it really has to be Hakimi. He's 45% owned for a reason. 21 attacking returns in 48 games last season. I think that was probably one of his best seasons in terms of attacking returns. I think the best before that was 19 at Dortmund during the 19-20 season. So exceptional value at that price range. Got to get him in. So that leaves me with 25.5 million with 5 players to pick. So let's pick a cheap player now. I can't get everyone in. That's going to be super expensive. And yeah, the options right now, I'm not well versed when it comes to the £4.0 million defenders. So in many ways, this will be a placeholder pick. And I'm going to pick Mauro Jr. of PSV. You can see he got a reasonable amount of points in UCL Fantasy last season. And of course, when it comes to UCL Fantasy, this isn't like FPL where you've got your sub 3 and they're irrelevant. You're going to have to use them on certain match days if your alternate players don't do well. So yeah, it's a bit of a placeholder. Ideally, I'd want to push to a 4.5, but I'm going to keep him in the team for now. That's £21.5 million to spend with my remaining budget. So looking at the other players that are available, I do want to pick an Arsenal player as well. I think Arsenal defensively offer a lot of value. So let's just get rid of the filter there. So just curious to see who the highest owned Arsenal defender is. It'll probably be a Gabriel or a Saliba who I'm going to pick. So there he is, Gabriel, £5.5 million in UCL Fantasy. It's paradoxical, isn't it, that Reinders is £1 million more in UCL Fantasy, and you've got Gabriel who's £500,000 less. It is what it is. So yeah, just need an Arsenal player for the defensive prowess for sure. If Saka hits the ground running in the Premier League, no doubt I'd rejig this team and pick Saka, but £16 million to spend on my remaining 3 players. So let's see what I can do here. So the other pick that comes to mind, I want to go to Bayern Munich, perhaps. Having a think who else I could get here. In fact, let's go to the goalkeepers. I want to come on to my final defender in a moment. I think the goalkeepers are easy picks. Kobel and Sommer, time and time again, I've picked them quite regularly over the past 2 or 3 seasons when I've played UCL Fantasy. And of course, Sommer was a bit more advanced in terms of how Inter Milan did in UCL Fantasy last season versus Kobel. But I'm going to pick Kobel. He's 1 million less. I wouldn't pay £6 million for a UCL Fantasy goalkeeper. So ideally 5 million or less. So yeah, I think Kobel, we know what to get with him. Didn't want to double up, but I've got a triple up now of Dortmund players. Just looking at who else I could potentially get at 5 million if I want to do a quick switch. Got Di Gregorio, could potentially get him in fact. And got Karnaseki as well. In fact, let's do that. Let's get Di Gregorio and get Karnaseki as well. I actually had that combo in UCL Fantasy for the early stages of last season. Unfortunately, it didn't work as expected despite the great fixtures that both of those teams had. But yeah, look at that. £4.5 million each. And that leaves me with £7 million to spend on my final defender, which kind of validates actually I probably underspent slightly in midfield. So let's just look at the most popular owned defenders that are available. The player I was going to get, if funds were an issue, was Upamecano of Bayern Munich. So yeah, you've got Saliba, interestingly, £6 million. Got Van Dijk, 6 million as well. Haven't got a Liverpool player, so I think Van Dijk could be an option, but 6 million for limited attacking threat, probably not. Let's just look at the players by points. Got Pacho, Marquinhos, of course, advanced stages of the competition. Got Dumfries, who time and time proves himself in UCL Fantasy, so I could pick him as well. Might have to go for a Van Dijk or a Frimpong, perhaps even a Kirkes, purely because I want to get that variation in my team. Frimpong, 5.5 million, bit of a bargain. Then again, you got Konate, somehow also the same price as well. So I think for the purpose of this draft, yeah, let's pick an attacking player. Let's not be boring here. I mean, I could just get double PSG defense, but just need variation. I think Dumfries would be a nice addition because we know what his proven prowess is in UCL Fantasy. So there we go. This is my first UCL Fantasy draft for the 25-26 season, and I've got £1 million or €1 million to spare as well. I think this is definitely one of the most balanced teams I've had in UCL Fantasy because I like to have a heavy attack and then I cheapen out in defense to a large degree. Ultimately, it was the goalkeeping combo that's really worked out here because I was expecting to probably spend about 9.5 or 10 million. So I've got the extra million as a result of that. Let's just sort this now. If we remove all the filters, have a look at the misses that I've got in terms of this team. So got Hakimi, haven't got Nuno Mendes, which I could easily switch to. Very highly owned, got the attacking prowess as well. So 4 of my 5 players are template players. You got the likes of Pacho, Kane, a big miss, 17% owned there. In fact, let me just sort this by percentages. Yamal, haven't got him, but have got Rafinha. So might need to pay the extra $500,000 if I feel that at the Liga level that Rafinha isn't doing as much as Yamal. Mbappe, a big miss for me at 38%. You got Vitinha, don't really, yeah, £7 million, but like I think I'd justify having the likes of Lookman, Elise, and Reinders versus Vitinha at that price, just due to the amount of players that PSG have. I think David Raya, big miss as well, but then if I've got Gabriel, I wouldn't really want to double up with David Raya unless Arsenal had some amazing opening fixtures. Got Dembele, Guirassy, yeah, Van Dijk, who I was potentially going to pick, but then wanted the attacking prowess. So yeah, Dumfries is worth it, despite being 7% less owned at the time of recording. Got Saliba, Courtois, Frimpong, got Pedri. Yeah, I wouldn't want to pay 7.5 million when I've got Rafinha there. I think Declan Rice would offer really great value as well. And you got Haaland just going further down at 18%. So yeah, some interesting picks there. Ultimately, with this draft, again, to reiterate, it's just a reference point so that when I do build my actual first draft with fixtures, I'm not going to just go in the deep end without knowing what's going on. And easily, if Jude Bellingham was fully fit, Joe Bellingham could potentially switch out, could even have both of them. Looking at if I was being really critical, I've probably spent a bit too much in defense with 6 million plus defenders, and I haven't really spent more in midfield with no double-digit price tag midfielders, and yeah, probably a bit light up front as well. This team is probably screaming for a Harry Kane, even an Mbappe, but on the whole, fairly happy with it. And just a quick update on the rules. To my knowledge, since the overhaul from last season, there's not been any rule changes from what I've read in UCL Fantasy for the 25-26 season. So keep that in mind as well. And yeah, I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on this draft. Have I got the balance right? Have I got the balance wrong? Are there any clear misses? Is there a player that I should really be getting that I haven't got? And as always, if you're able to like, share, and subscribe, that will be greatly appreciated. Take care and all the best.